I have less brain fog, much more mental clarity. I'm more focused. I can see better. Overall, I'm feeling good. I'm not that anxious. I'm chill. It's been great for 3 weeks. Exceptional.
I'm Dr. Brian Hutchison, and tonight I'm joined by Borna and Anja, who've traveled all the way from Croatia to be here today. So thank you so much for both joining.
Thank you, Dr. Brian.
You're welcome. Borna and Anja have been here for about 3 weeks, but their journey started long before getting to Florida. Anja, will you share with us a little bit about your journey and what led to this point?
It all started 4 years ago after I got COVID. Also, I was diagnosed with EDS, which is connective tissue disorder. So 2 years after I was diagnosed, I went to Barcelona for fusion. Things were good, but they were not as good as I suspect that they will be.
Sure.
We tried solutions, and I went to many treatments, but nothing worked. We found you on the internet via YouTube, and we decided that we will try.
So about 4 years ago, you got diagnosed with cervical cranial instability and atlantoaxial instability.
Yeah.
And you were in Croatia having a hard time getting a lot of progress.
Yes.
It seems a common theme that there's a lot of raised awareness throughout all of Europe when it comes to upper cervical instability, but still many people have a difficult time finding CCI literate practitioners, whether they are chiropractors, physiotherapists, regenerative medicine doctors, or even neurosurgeons who can provide the ultimate or final kind of intervention when the conservative approach is fed. So you were on that journey for a while. Lucky you are somewhat close to a neurosurgeon in Spain, Dr. Gillette, who does amazing work, and he was able to provide you with a C0 to C2 fusion.
Yes.
Borna, we've reviewed the experience there, and you stated that, overall you were, very impressed by the quality of the care, and
the doctor did an excellent job. Anja did an excellent recovery. After Spain, we did tether cord release in Italy. Meanwhile, we were doing the online training with you.
Yes.
With your neck weights,
yes.
Which seemed to show the best improvement in the last year of her posture, of her well-being.
Yeah.
And we decided to travel this far to Florida from Croatia, from Europe, to get to an even better position that we were at before.
Yeah.
We can definitely testify that after 3 weeks, we are
seeing great improvements.
Excellent improvements. So we are very satisfied, but I would rather her say it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I'm also thrilled. Results are great so far. I mean, much less pain. I can walk further. I can swim. So yeah, it's been great for 3 weeks. Exceptional.
And so after you had your cranial and cervical fusions, you had your C0 to C2 fused, you did get a positive direction, right?
Yes.
You were unable to, tell us about what improved with the surgical fusion.
Well, I could walk without my leg brace. Before that, I was depend on that. And I couldn't walk even to the bathroom without it. So I couldn't sleep well. I couldn't walk. I couldn't cook. I couldn't work. So the fusion bring me relief in that area that I could walk without brace.
Right.
I also started to cook more, and I could take care for my essential needs.
Yes.
That was pretty important because I was relying on him and on my parents.
Few symptoms that are key for us coming here were the brain fog,
Yes,
the POTS or the high heart rate that used to be apparent. And now after the treatments, it appears that it all has calmed down and gave her more life and more I mean, stability, definitely.
Yes, and also more mental clarity.
Yes.
Yes,
And the
that
eye
is great.
focusing too.
Yes, eye focusing, and yes.
So, the cervical cranial fusion got you from being almost completely bedridden, 100% dependent on your husband, Borna, as well as your parents, to be able to do basic chores.
Yes.
You were able to walk without your brace. You felt a little more confident and comfortable,
Yes.
in your own body. But with that being said, you still had certain limitations. You shared with me that it was difficult for you to make it through an entire day. You would feel extreme fatigue, still get brain fog,
Yes.
POTS or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where your heart rate would spontaneously jump up 30, 40 points and then back. And it was interesting, Anja, because you mentioned that when you were walking fast, you felt okay. But if you walked slow or sat down, it was like game over. It was like, you were feeling terrible.
Yeah.
And so, we did do the coaching program together, as Borna had already shared. Found out that when we put you into an optimal cervical spine curve, and really considering the spinal curves of your lumbar and thoracic spine as well, that not only for the short term, but even as we continued, there was a tick in a positive direction. But we knew that the connective tissue below your fusion was still compromised, having Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobility, and even with the best surgical approach, you do have to cut some good tissue. So very often, if you get a great surgeon, the tissue that does get cut is still salvageable or repairable, let's say. You can still stimulate the adhesions or the little bit of scar tissue to be stronger and more effective connective tissue when a surgeon does a really good job, like Dr. Gillette did in Anja's case. So we were able to work on all of the spots around where her surgical incision was, below it, some of the spots on her scalp that were in different spots that her fusion had, taken place. And also we found what was interesting about the jugular vein that we found on day one, and how has that changed over the last 3 weeks?
Well, I have less brain fog, much more mental clarity. And yeah, I'm more focused. I can see better. The colors are brighter and
That's
I
amazing.
can see better. And overall, I'm feeling good. I'm not that anxious. I'm chill.
You are much more chill.
Much more
at
chill.
peace.
Yes.
Borna, not only the jugular vein test, which we repeated today, in the supine position initially, I think there was a little bit of compression, and today it seemed like it was, more open. But what was interesting to you about the curve check that we did, where we showed Anja's curve when you guys arrived 3 weeks ago, and then we checked it again just yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, it's like magic. I mean, the first scans that we took showed the position of the neck, gave us a way, gave Dr. Brian points where to start fixing, how to adjust her neck, her clavicle bones, and so on. And after 3 weeks, we redid the pictures, and it showed great improvement. I mean, we saw alignments. We saw by our amateur eyes, you can see that things are really going the way they should. And not only that, we now made a plan for the future, how to even more prevent it when we get cold. But the main thing that we did here is that we gave her, I think, more energy and more, so she can go through the entire day without getting fatigued. So now it's nearly 8 p.m. Usually she would be laying in bed in this position without energy, without anything. She's now perfectly stable, perfectly, energetic, and we can continue the treatments. The training back at home, overseas, and if needed, we'll definitely come back for a few more adjustments so we can improve, because this definitely
It works.
showed us it worked, and it's worth the effort to taking the long trip. So we saw in these 3 weeks people from all over the world, which doctor can say even more. So that even gave us more energy, that we know that we are not the only ones who are coming all this way to get treatment. So, I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah.
Says everything.
Yeah, it was an incredible time while you guys were here. You guys were able to partner with someone who had a comparable long journey of 4 years, and another gentleman that was even on a much longer journey. And we were able to partner you to have a support group while you were here. And another couple this week was here from Italy, and there was a couple from Canada and from Australia, and a young lady from Germany here. And so it was a really good time for you to be here and have a support group in a way as well, to just have someone to talk to who's going through a similar neck injury. I found it really interesting on your curve check, Anja, as we recall, that it was partially, even though C0 to C2 were fused, your neck, just because of everything it's been through, in the the straightforward view, the A to P view, had kind of like a lateral curvature to it. And it was causing the appearance from the lateral view to show your C1 was still tilted, and you could see both sides of the surgical screws from a purely lateral. So there was like a rotational and a tilting element. And we repeated the same lateral image after 2.5 weeks of care. And remember, we could only see one of the surgical screws because they're perfectly balanced. Yeah. The C1 was completely flat from the same angle picture. And we saw an improvement in your cervical spine lordosis even after having a C0 to C2 fusion, which is pretty monumental, that many people believe, well, if I get surgery, there's still nothing that I can do after that. And it's not true. I still recommend doing prehab before surgery to get your neck and your structural health in the most optimal position possible. Unless you cannot stand at all, you can't do any rehab at all, then maybe surgery may be the place to start. But in this case, we were able to do rehab with Anja and still make incredible changes structurally. Fundamentally, she's been improving, as she stated. But just kind of give a little recap, if you will, of maybe what has been the most impactful to you over these last 3 weeks, or even since we started working together.
Yes. Well, greatest things were mental clarity and less pain.
Yes.
The pain is minimal, so that was a great improvement.
Great.
In my pain, yeah.
Great.
I don't have any pain in my shoulders, my neck. I used to have lots of pain in that area. Now it's minimal, so I'm grateful for that.
Well, I'm delighted to have you both here, and so happy that we could continue your progress that you've already made over the last couple of years. And Borna, anything else that you'd like to close with?
I would say definitely what impressed me the most was the dry needling. So you've done it. So 90% of this treatment was dry needling. And it's impressive how even after first day, when you did the specific spots, whether it was the neck or the back or the knee, how much improvement it makes exactly at the same moment. I mean, her posture, you said, I'm gonna do this here, and her right will, and it, so she's been so straightforward. So it's impressive how, I mean, thankfully, I assume it doesn't work 100% for everybody, but for her, really, when we wanted to adjust something, you knew, you felt the spots, you did which did take a lot of energy for her because it's really intense,
yes.
But she's a champ. And it really, you can see the effects immediately. And we are hoping, and we know that after a month or two, when the scars heal, that it's going to be even better.
That's a great point to bring up, Borna. And, very many people will search for something on imaging is really the main thing that they treat. So they'll say, oh, well, there's a tear in the supraspinatus tendon, or there's obvious, this ligament has laxity in it. And when you treat an individual based only on the imaging, it's really not a holistic approach. So as a chiropractor, we really kind of, I guess, our philosophy is to treat the entire person. And in Anja's case, I believe that she probably could share something as well about how we treated her hips and her knees, and about how that helped her walk different and made her have less shoulder and neck pain.
I was in pain in my whole body. I was aching. My whole body was in pain. My hips was in pain. My knees were in pain. Also my legs, my lower spine, my neck, shoulders, everything was in pain. So you treated me whole. My whole body was treated with your needling, and I saw great improvements. And that tells me that everything is connected.
In summary, it's really important to treat the entire person. When you have a complex injury that took many years to develop, and most of the people that have CCI or some kind of really complex neurologic issue, they didn't obtain it overnight. Once in a while, there's a catastrophic crash or accident where all of the symptoms arise. And before that, the individual is perfectly healthy. But many times people are walking around as what I refer to very often as a ticking time bomb. And I don't say that in an ugly way, but really our body has an incredible ability to compensate and accommodate for severe amounts of abnormal function. And at some point, it's like that last straw that you get pulled and all of these symptoms unfold. Helping somebody to restore a normal gait, normal movement patterns, muscle activation patterns, where they use the right muscles in the right order is always and should always be a very important part of your recovery as you travel forward on your recovery from complex neurologic issues. Borna, was there one more thing?
I would add her first goal at the beginning and her last goal is to regain the ability to run, which is her passion. And we've also gained a few steps there. So we've tried to run a few times, as she would say, like a retired person, but a step is a step. And after you treated the hips,
Yes.
and the knees, as you told, so that they would absorb the power, the energy that wouldn't go up to the fusion. We saw improvements in that area as well, and we are going to continue improving it back home with the neck weights, which we also, after the X-rays, we did a little bit of adjustments.
Correct.
So this is one of the points to go physically here, because online can do so much, maybe 70%, 80%, but the final touches have to be made here, I think. Definitely. Which was scary at first. Coming, yes, and so on, but now the brakes are off.
Yes.
We're very
happy.
Yeah, I know that we're sweating out here. These lights are so hot. We're in the Florida summer. But to add to that was that when we checked on Anja's curve after fitting her remotely and making some improvement, you notice that Borna said that the coaching plan was helpful, but we found that based on her individual constitution, that it was much better if we put a wider or more widespread force distribution of one of her neck weights, which didn't cause her neck to go into more of a V-shaped lordosis, but created a very gentle, smooth lordosis that helped her feel a lot better while restoring the normal spinal curvature. So that's another way that we individualize care and look to eventually be able to teach this kind of approach of alignment, curvature, and stability to everyone. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope that Anja's story has inspired you to reclaim or continue the path towards reclaiming your health. So thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you, Dr. Brian.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure, you guys.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.